Greetings, Regional Modernism students. I hope this finds you well. Welcome to week number 7, the 7th of our 8-week journey through this quite complex issue regarding um, regionalism, modernism, localism, uh, nationalism, globalism, how we understand the concrete and abstract um, conceptualizations of place. And as we've uh, explored throughout our time together, artists have a particular way of transacting and embodying those tensions. And this week, I thought I would share with you the work of the artist Enrique Martinez Celaya, a Los Angeles-based artist with whom I have worked as a curator, critic, and collaborator for over 20 years. And I thought I would share with you his work, his background, how he manifests in a particularly distinct way, I think, some of the questions that we are exploring um, in this class that I think might be quite interesting to you. There will be no discussion prompt this week. I want you to take in the materials that I'll send you. I'll send you a few more throughout the week. I'll be teaching in New York City at King's College this week, and when I get some time, I'll send along some other things for you to consider with Martinez Celaya's work. So again, this is information. It helps you perhaps think about how you may want to approach your final project. It just is a way for me to share with you why I was interested in teaching this class in the first place, which comes from his work. So a few things that I'll share with you about him. He was born in Cuba in 1964. He and his family immigrated from Cuba, exiled for the most part in 1970. They went to Spain, and he lived for a while in Barcelona and Madrid in poverty. His father has a long record of failed business attempts, and that put the family continually at risk. The family tried to emigrate to the United States, was given permission to emigrate to Puerto Rico, and so Enrique spent his middle school and high school years in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He then was the valedictorian of his high school class, University High School in San Juan, which was one of the most exclusive high schools. He got in because he passed the test, and he has spoken to me often about the bus or the ride that he got from his impoverished neighborhood into the city where the high school is, and how that transformation was crucial for him in his belief in the importance of education and the desperation to get out of what he saw was a circle that was turning into a spiral. He then went to Cornell on a scholarship and to study applied physics and art, and then went to Cal Berkeley to study quantum mechanics and worked on his doctorate, had taken his comps and was working on his writing up his results for his dissertation, and he decided to quit and devote himself full-time to being an artist. And the work that he has done has dealt with these issues of marginalization, exile, longing, displacement, alienation, all of those qualities that came out of this disjunction of leaving Cuba, but also part of how he's simply experienced the world. He felt that he never fit anywhere. He was in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Being a Cuban in Puerto Rico wasn't the best of situations. Speaking Caribbean Spanish also marginalized him in Spain. And feeling out of joint, feeling displaced, feeling that there was something called home that he was aspiring to has been a constant interest in his artistic practice and his writing as well. He writes poetry. He at present is the Provost Professor of Humanities and the Arts at University of Southern California. And he currently has a joint appointment in the art school, the Roski Art School, and in the Dornsife College of Arts and Sciences, where he's currently teaching a course on Melville's Moby Dick. And these ideas of the journey, of the visual metaphor of the singular figure in the landscape is a visual metaphor that he uses throughout his work. In the email that this video accompanies, I have a link to his website. You can look at it, you can see his work. But a couple things I want to focus attention on is the care with which he creates his studio space. So when I've worked with him, he's had several studios in Los Angeles area. Currently his studio is in Culver City, and I've attached a couple photographs. I worked with him in even more depth when he had a studio in Miami. I spent time with him a couple years ago when he was a visiting professor at Dartmouth College, and he made paintings for an exhibition in New York in a studio that Dartmouth provided for him. And what is significant is the environment and the importance of the environment. His shaped environment, the studio, in which the studios are nothing if not ambitious. They are large, they are comprehensive, they are means by which he, as he has told me, embodies his worldview and how he sees himself in relationship to his work and to the world. And he says, the world and my work make sense in the studio. So the studio is not just a place where he generates artifacts. It's a place where he lives. It's a place that lives figuratively, even though he's always thought about the hope of combining a home and a studio. The care with which he presents he shapes his space at studio, but then also the homes, and how he renovates and designs them in a way that provides a visual architectural design argument for what he values in life. I want to talk a little bit about before I do that, I have a text that is on his reflection on being Cuban, and give you an idea of how he thinks about exile and longing and displacement. Also, what's important is that oftentimes in the art world, given the fact that he's Cuban, his work, he comes from the Caribbean part of the world, that his work has a certain Caribbean or Latin American influences that are just simply to be presumed. But he's he's pushed against that pretty strongly, in terms of artistic influences and creative influences, he is much more influenced by the arts and the literature from Germany. That as a German philosophy, German art are very, very important to him, and they bear an important they bear an important mark on his work, not just being a Cuban or growing up in Puerto Rico has shaped his worldview. What he's read, how he's thought, the accesses to ideas. And also he's identified with Jewish writers, given their sense of displacement and alienation and homelessness. There's a project that he engaged in, that he participated in Miami, and I've attached an interview that is included in a catalog, and I've also included a download of the catalog itself for you to look through images, read some of the text, get a sense of what it's about. But he participated with the city of Miami and Miami-Dade Community College, which was one of the largest colleges in the country, for the 50-year commemoration of Operation Pedro Pan, which was an airlift from Havana to Miami in 1960, over the course of a few years, ending in 1962, I think from 1960 to 1962, in which thousands of children, without their parents, were put on these planes and sent to the United States in order to avoid the indoctrination of Castro. And there's tremendous controversy about the value of it, whether Castro was in fact planning to develop these education camps for kids, but the parents were worried and so fearful that they risked not seeing their children again for the sake of giving them the opportunity to experience freedom here in the United States. So Martinez Celaya was commissioned to do a sculpture, a public sculpture, and he entitled the sculpture "The Tower of Snow." It's about, I think, a 16, 18-foot sculpture of a boy on crutches with a building, an image of a house in the back of his head, around his neck. That close to his head is on his back is something that he's bearing, a burden that he's bearing, this burden of home, of place, the woundedness of the figure making his way on this path on crutches. Is a powerful monument, and it was intended. It is situated in downtown Miami, at Biscayne Bay. It is next to the Freedom Tower, which was where immigrants from Cuba were processed as they came to the United States, and the sculpture commemorates this movement towards freedom, someplace, or this place where freedom is. And this question of place, where home is, and certainly Martinez Celaya is moving around throughout the country, building different studios, is part of his migratory, transitory sense of life, and this sense of making art as a means by which he is at least giving the possibility that there may be home, that there may be someplace else on the way. So I've presented you with some information. I'll give you more, some images. Again, this is just to help you think about ways to approach your paper. It shares with you some of my experience with him. I have an introduction that I wrote, a lead essay of a monograph that was published of his work a couple years ago, to give you another sense of his work. But I think his work really manifests these poles and tensions between the local and the national, the concrete and the abstract, that I think you'll find quite poignant and of interest. And also go to on YouTube, there are plenty of lectures and examples of him talking about his work that I think you'll find very helpful thinking about art and exile. So I hope these comments help you. Have a great week, and you'll be hearing from me again. Take care.